Peace. Peace, everybody. It's the Hood Mystic. Represent www.thehoodmystic.com. Peace, everybody. Peace. Not going to take up too much of y'all time. Just going to wait for a couple people to get on here and then just go with it. Hope everybody's doing good. Hope the vibrations are high. Hope we still continuing with the tradition of gratitude. Let's just look at this astrology chart for a second. All right, so we're just going to begin this thing. Today is July 16, 2018. And we are building on, just the energy, daily energy readings, keeping this thing going. I am the Hood Mystic, representing www.TheHoodMystic.com. And such a beautiful day, such beautiful energy. The thing that we want to focus on is the moon, ladies and gentlemen. The moon is so powerful because the moon represents our subconscious mind, and it moves faster than any planet in the astrology. And so today and through the night, the moon has been conjunct Venus in Virgo. So what I would like us to do is pay attention to our dreams that we had last night, because the dreams that we had last night are very telling, very revealing. Why do I say that? Because the moon is now connected to the grand trine, the Earth grand trine, which is connected to Uranus and Saturn. And so as Venus moves out of position and the moon moves out of position, we're going to be left with Uranus just trine Saturn. And so the changes that are happening, we have clues to it right now. But if we are not mindful of our dreams and our intuition, then we're simply attached to our present reality, and that ultimately is no good, because our present reality has to change because Saturn is trying Uranus, and this is a long-standing aspect in astrology. So we are talking about the lunar eclipse, which is coming very soon, and how are you going to be prepared for it? July 27th. So in the comments, in the description of this video, is the link to the lunar eclipse video. Probably one of the most informative videos I did on astrology. And so if you think like you like my astrology videos, that probably right there would be the most helpful video for preparation of this time and this energy. Because a lot of people are going to be like, yo, it's the end of the world and doom and gloom. But ultimately, the end of one world is always the beginning of a new world. So my mind is more focused on creating that new world as opposed to being attached to this old world. So astrologically, for the next 4 days is going to be very quiet and not much happening. So what we can begin to do is really take this energy as mental preparation. And how do we access our mental preparation? The concept that I want to focus on is gratitude, but also establishing that gratitude by the process of mental silence. Mental silence equals mental power. Generally, if we have a lot of things on our mind, they say that the human being throughout the day has 50,000 thoughts. 50,000 thoughts. So 50,000 thoughts is really a drainage of your power. You're thinking about this, that, and the third. But ultimately, if we can begin to utilize mental silence and allow things to happen in the level of magic or spirit, we have to stop thinking so much. And so what this means, how do we accomplish this? Well, we have to create a sacred bond with ourselves. And ourselves, meaning our soul or our spiritual selves. See, we have these things that we want. We want to be close to our families, or close to our friends, and close to our lovers, and close to our children. But how many of us want to be close to our souls or close to our spirits? And so as the astrology kind of dies down, and we really do a lot of stuff with the sun coming up in this next couple weeks, and really fully embodying all of the stuff that we've been talking about. So This is more of a buildup. This is more of an understanding. And if we can kind of get that understanding and develop this relationship with self, the more power we'll generate for ourselves. As the earth begins to change, we begins to change with the earth, but we grow and we understand ourselves deeper and more of a power structure, as opposed to, oh my God, what is we gonna do? Like, we have to get out of that. And so what this really symbolizes is power, and the power to live and the power to function subjectively in the concept of love. So that's why I wanted you to be mindful of the dreams that you had last night, because they probably more or less were centered on a universal love that you can kind of embody and incorporate in your waking life. This is serious stuff. This happened for me. This also happened for my wife. So I know we're not complete aliens. So generally, if you had dreams last night, make sure you journal it. Make sure you remember it, because they meant a lot, okay? And it meant a lot in a way that we can actually live our lives. Focus on the love that we have to give to people, the love that we initiate, like the love that we want to give. And so this is different from the love that we want to give, and hopefully they give it back. Very different. So the love that we choose to give and the amount that we choose to give, we're gonna give it, and no guarantee that anybody's gonna give a shit back. We're not even, our mind is not even focused on that level of reciprocation. It's just more of, this is what I want to do, this is how I want to express myself. And this is much different from, if you don't treat me the way I want to be treated, I'm an 86 your ass. Like, it's much outside of that. And so, like I said, I didn't want to take up too much of your time. I'm going to really just jump into the tarot cards of the day, because it speaks to this energy better than the astrology, okay? So, the Queen of Swords. The Queen of Swords speaks to codependency. Codependency, or dependency in general. So this dependency could be to drugs. This dependency could be to a situation, an employment, anything unhealthy that you find yourself dependent upon, that's actually blocking you from getting across, you know, to your dreams or your happiness and things of that nature. And what should you do about that dependency? Well, you should cut it off. The Queen of Swords comes with the sword, and she's really trying to cut that off. Not to be mean, not to be evil, even though she's perceived that way, but it's really because she wants you to really be free of all attachments and all dependencies. And what is the true dependency, the true attachment that you want to strive for? You want to strive for the dependency to self, the dependency to the soul. And this is true freedom. This is true gratitude. This is true love. And from this place, you know that you are not dependent on an outside or external circumstance for your ultimate benefit. And we have to repeat this. We have to remind you of this energy, because you have to insert within the comments a better solution than dependent on your soul for sustenance. Maybe it's dependent on the government, or dependent on, I don't know, tell me something. But generally, how I feel towards this thing is dependent on your soul, and really detaching from all negative dependencies that don't really amount to anything that are actually holding you back. So we still dealing with the universe. We still are dealing with Saturn. We're still trying to get outside of time. Generally, you're bogged down by time, and there's not enough time in the day. And that's because the way that you set your life up, the way that you are conditioned and mind controlled by these institutions. I would suggest that you ask to see the boss. And once you see the boss, ask to see his boss. And once you see that boss, ask to see his boss. And keep going and see where you end up. Some vague, weird, alternate reality. So ultimately, you taking orders from somebody that you don't even know, that doesn't give a shit about you, that is using your energy for his benefit, and you are none of the wiser. So you have to separate and come outside of that and begin to serve yourself, your power structure, and your personal life. This is not about the Hood Mystic. This is not about God or Jesus or any type of deity that exists outside of yourself. This is about honoring and registering and implementing all conscious energy to your deity, to your God, to your spirit, your innermost, your divine source, okay? And that is not, you know, listening to your supervisor, because that supervisor represents Saturn, which is a malevolent force in your life that is here to distract you, to give you negative emotions so they can feed, because this is how these entities feed. They feed off of your stress, fear, and anxiety. So you have to exit, and then you can't exit and then relax. You have to exit and then begin to develop that relationship with self, because even though you're not working for the man, you begin to have to work for yourself. And you might give the man 50 hours, 60 hours a week. So when it comes to yourself, can you give yourself? Imagine you giving yourself 50 to 60 hours a week, developing your crafts, developing your passions, spreading your goodness around the world. Imagine that. Instead of watching, binging on Netflix shows and things of the like. So 9 of Cups. 9 of Cups, we discuss Venus and Pisces. And so really loving the soul is how we become happy. The title of that card is happiness, but I call it joy. Because generally happiness, things have to happen to trigger a positive emotion. Joy, nothing has to trigger that. Simply me understanding my infinite and ultimate power source, how can I be sad? So connection to source is automatic joy. This is something that we need to be mindful of. And this is something that I learned in church a long time ago. And to this day, it is true. Joy is on the inside of you, and happiness is an external thing that has to happen. So it's important that we focus on the joy, focus on the 9 of Cups. And so we have 3 9s in this reading. Interesting, you know, these are that random. So if the 3 9s mean anything to you, what are we talking about? I don't know. It's just interesting to me when you have synchronicities of the like. And so the 9 of Cups, 9 of Swords. Mental health. Mental health is a result of not connecting to source. Mental health is when we have 2 to 4 to 5 to 6 personalities, and we try to honor those different personalities in multitude of different ways and find ourselves completely split up and completely depleted of mental reserve energies. By the time we talk about spirit and source and magic and things of that nature, you're just too tired because you're simply trying to act out on too many different personalities. So this creates mental health problems, whether it be schizophrenia, bipolar, manic depressive, whatever the case may be. So we have to center ourselves, see ourselves in oneness and wholeness. Meditation. You know, these aren't just cool things to do, to take pictures of yourself doing. These things actually unify the self and the soul, and this is what's needed in these days and times. Like I said, 3 9s, and so we have the 9 of Wands. So we had the 9 of Cups, the 9 of Swords, and the 9 of Wands. What's missing? The 9 of Discs. Meaning that we're not in the physical just yet. We're still mentally preparing for the life. So we're still processing this. We're still dealing with this energy. How do you want to see your life from a passionate standpoint? And so the 9 of Wands really speaks to a force. That's the Sun in Sagittarius. when we live our life in a force, in a subjective, I'm going to accomplish this and I'm not going to accomplish nothing else, then that utilizes our spiritual energy, and it's a block to all bullshit. You ever notice when you are really focused on something, how you weren't really stopped, or people stop calling you, your mama stop getting on your nerves once you really got a focus? And so that's what the Nine of Wands release talks to. It's really about that Sagittarian energy, that Jupiter energy. And so they say sometimes Jupiter can be a destructive force, but destructive is just a word that people use when they're attached to the material world. And so that's a more of a naive way of looking at the world. Ultimately, looking at history, looking at life. In your life, things have changed. Have things been destroyed? It's just a perspective. Change is natural. Change is normal. Are you growing or are you decaying? That would be the question. The Queen of Wands. And so we started with a queen and then we end with a queen. And so we have the queen of all queens, Yemiya. And we also are talking about the moon. And so when we want to talk about the moon and relate it to ourselves esoterically, we're simply talking about our subconscious mind. And how can we control that? Because our subconscious mind is a wider, larger energy reserve. And so when we think about this thing, we can't be passive, we can't be weak about our application. Yemiya is not weak. The feminine energy is not weak. It must be a ferocious, it must be a passionate thing that we're doing when we're developing our spirituality. It's not something that we can be like, oh, this is interesting, but let me get back to my stress, fear, and anxiety, because that's more important than really healing myself. You know, so it's really a message that I wanted to get out to the people before I started my day. Really appreciate the support. I'm still here, still doing this, and I'm doing this for y'all every day to really set the example of how you really have to do this spirituality. Because I could come every 2 months and be dropping some hot shit, you know, but generally, what are you doing in between those 2 months? So as the time being, a spirit is leading me to do this every day and constantly giving me these messages and things of that nature, I'll do it. So really need some support. I'm not afraid to ask for help. This is something, a part of my journey that really, I did this page for, you know, 2 years and I never asked for anything. And it wasn't like I did this for people. I ultimately did this for myself, but as people are requiring energy, there has to be an energy exchange. And so I'm not afraid to, you know, put that out into the atmosphere. Whatever you put out into the world, you deserve that energy exchange. And it may not come directly how you expect it, but it will come in different ways. So the good that you set or the love that you set, you'll get that back. And I'm a living proof of that, because I have a lot of love and a lot of different resources that come to me that I generally don't have to ask or want for anything. So I'm very fortunate and grateful. And so I just want to keep that energy going and spread that thing and pay it forward and all of that. So patreon.com/TheHoodMystic, paypal.me/TheHoodMystic, Cash App, Hoodmystic38. The Gmail is hoodmystic@gmail.com. The website is hoodmystic.com. And also, I want you guys, in the description, there is the lunar eclipse video. If you haven't seen that video yet, please check that out. Let me know what you feel about it. I put a lot of effort, a lot of work into this. So I'm putting more effort and more work into the spirituality, and it's all coming from a subjective place of the deepest universal love that spirit will give to me, that I'm able to give to the people, because it's all about advancing the human race at this point, as opposed to all this subjective racial, gender, you know, sexism, all of this stuff that needs to really be wiped away. And how do we wipe it away? What's the solution? Spirituality. And so I want to be the leading voice of that spirit first, and, you know, really get you outside of the matrix. So peace and love and blessings. I'm signing out.